Welcome to In the Green, the podcast based on the intersection between life, finance, and the pursuit of breaking par. I am your host, Ryan Briggs with GFG Wealth Advisors. Time to tee off. Welcome back to the In the Green podcast. I am your host, Ryan Briggs. We are joined by a very special guest today, Mr. John Harvey Slocum. John
Good morning.
Harvey, thanks for coming by, my friend.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invite. I'm really excited about this.
Of course.
Appreciate you letting me join you.
It's always my pleasure to spend time with you, so happy to have you on the pod.
Well, thank you. I feel the same.
We've got a nice topic today. We're going to talk about finding the right business partner, right? So longtime listeners of the show, you'll know I like to pick a topic and then find a guest that's got some personal experience in that topic, and you've got quite a bit of experience in finding a partner, don't you?
I do. I have probably against my parents' will been an entrepreneur for a long time, and had the opportunity to have good and bad partners and good and bad business decisions. So, but it's fun. But I think oftentimes there's very few businesses owned by a single individual, and I think recognizing, how to identify good partners and bad partners, and just the honesty of that decision is important.
Yeah,
every businessman.
It's definitely a skill.
Right. For sure.
It is a skill to sniff people out and get to the bottom of it.
For sure. And I think that one thing that we all, when you are looking for a partner and starting a business, it's easy to be anxious, and it's easy to be positive and not think about the long term of that. And you have to make sure that you identify the people, not just for the good traits, but the bad traits. And really the biggest part of it is how they communicate and how they're willing. I would say that emotional people are the hardest to be partners with, not because that's bad. There's a bunch of great people that are emotional, but carrying emotions with you in business, that can often be counterproductive. And not counterproductive, but just it's emotional, and you're going to go through hard times no matter what the business is, no matter what the industry is. So being able to find somebody that can communicate well, and that is really, really important.
I can believe it. Emotion and business are two things that they collide all the time, yet business and, in my world, the free market with investments, it's about the most logical thing you can put together.
Right.
It follows logic. It doesn't follow anything but numbers, and there's people in there that move it around, but
for sure,
it's definitely a balance. So before we get too deep into this, I want to introduce you a little bit to the audience. If you are a Aggie or a Bryan College Station citizen, you probably know this man very well, but let's say nobody's heard of you before. Just kind of give us a synopsis of where you're from.
Born and raised here in Bryan College Station. I actually, on both sides of that, I like to say Bryan College Station. I spent the first half of my life in Bryan, and have a bunch of wonderful friends there, and then moved over and graduated from high school. I think I made the move in the 8th grade.
Okay.
Moved over to College Station, graduated from Consolidated, stayed here, went to Texas A&M, and since then, my got out of school, was in the construction business for a little while, and then moved into oil and gas, and primarily my adult life I've spent in the oil and gas service business, both domestic and abroad. So had some fun experiences through that, and got the opportunity a few years ago. You never know what doors are being opened and what are being closed, but through some health stuff a few years ago, I got the opportunity to move home to my hometown, and we're here now and enjoying that. It's great to be in a community that you're raised in and be back close to family.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. My wife is here, and so it's fun. I have a couple kids now that share our hometown, so we'll have roots here for the foreseeable future. But I do think we need good people to step up and be leaders in our community. I think whether you look at a local level, even to a national level, there's a lot of people in those positions that we need to look at and have some concern. It needs to be important. Voting, who we elect, we need to take that a little more serious. It's our biggest freedom.
Yep.
And it needs to be taken seriously, and I think there's a need for good people, Christian, moral people to be in office. I think it would settle a bunch of the problems we do argue over every day.
Yeah, if we quit arguing and try to work together, it might actually work out okay.
And we do. We probably need a little more bipartisan people, and that does. By that, I don't mean changing our values, but I think there's a way to carry ourselves and communicate with others that's a lot more respectful. My dad, he's been a blessing in my life, not only as a wonderful dad and friend, but he's been a good role model. And one of the things he always said is you always have the right to be demanding of people and never demeaning. And I think that we've gotten ourselves in society where we have a lot of demeaning people, and that's not okay. It's not okay. The way we treat each other is very important, and it says so in the Bible. And we need to love and give a lot more grace and communicate a lot better to people with a lot more respect. I think that would go a long way in our society.
I couldn't agree with you more at all. That's very well said. And your dad is full of great quotes, and that's a nice gem that just popped through.
He's got a bunch of them. I think he learned that as a young coach. And you see it. I would say that it starts as something as simple as high school coaching or college coaching. See these coaches just parade these kids, and he was taught at a young age, as a young coach, that's not okay. You're here to develop people, and we want to send people out in the world one day that communicate and are kind and are good people, and so it starts early. But
well, you had a front row seat growing up to some good lessons.
I did. I had some great lessons. Very lucky.
Hopefully you weren't like the rest of us and did everything but listen to our own parents
well,
and listen to everybody else.
I think we all go through that from time to time. I think, like everybody, my dad's a whole lot smarter to me now than he was when I was 18. And at 25, he was a whole lot smarter than that, and he's continued. I was pretty lucky in that category. He's a pretty good guy and certainly a wonderful role model for how to conduct and carry ourselves.
Yeah, I can believe that. I can believe it. Let's jump back into the meat of our episode here.
Right.
Okay, so I'm a recent, transplant to College Station. Moved here in 2020.
All right.
Okay, so moved here right when COVID hit, got real fun.
No kidding.
But my girlfriend Casey and I, we started going to a restaurant called 1860.
Right.
Thought, this is amazing. Met the chef, met Johnny Poche,
right,
who turns out to be your partner.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Let's talk about, you've had all sorts of businesses. What gravitated you specifically to wanting to do something in the restaurant world? And then how did you find Johnny as a partner?
So really weird deal. 2 questions, and I guess I'll take the first one. The restaurant business was something that I didn't know much about getting into it. Being in the oil and gas service business, I had spent my lifetime entertaining. My family, prior to moving to College Station, my dad has roots in Southwest Louisiana, and so I've always loved cooking. I had an uncle and grandmother that were amazing chefs. So food, and then moving into the oil and gas business, hospitality of that business, and just entertaining. I always enjoyed and thought about restaurants and concepts and what I would do if I were ever in that position. And Johnny really made that easy. Our parents, Johnny and I, were not really close friends as a young age, but our dads were college teammates, played football together at McNeese State.
I did not know
so
that. That's awesome.
We knew each other's family more than we knew each other. We had met a time or two at McNeese functions, or his family would come over when A&M would play LSU. So Johnny and I knew each other. But when I got in the oil and gas business, I was down in Houston, and I worked for Rowan Drilling. I worked for Laterno Technologies, which was owned by Rowan Drilling. But we were down off Post Oak. We had an office, and Johnny was working for Maggiano's, and they decided to expand there in Post Oak. So it became an opportunity. We started hanging out just kind of by default. I'd bring customers over to entertain them at night, and Johnny would be there. And I quickly became a popular salesman in Houston because I could take you. I'd have a $100 budget, and Johnny would cook a $600 meal. So I was the guy to go to lunch with or go to dinner with, and our friendship grew through that. When we moved to Midland, I tried to get Johnny to do several concepts there. There was a need for restaurants, and I know Johnny is a very special artist in the kitchen, is an amazing chef. So
what? I'm going to pause real quick. What year is this that you were trying to get him to do stuff?
This would have been 2016, 2015, 16 when we first got to Midland. I'd had some friends out there, and Midland has had extreme growth over the last 10 years, 8 to 10 years.
Sure has.
And so there was a need for that, and it just worked out. Johnny was in a wonderful job at that time with Brinkers International. He was one of the things that makes him so wonderful now. He was vice president of culinary design for their entire franchise, which he basically spent every day creating menu items and vetting food. You don't think about it for restaurants, but when you have big chain box restaurants like that, your food has to be consistent on both coasts and everywhere, so you have businessmen traveling. So the calamari has to have the same brine and same consistency on the East Coast as it does the West Coast. So he spent a lot of time vetting distributors, products, and that kind of stuff. So our philosophy now at 1860, or his philosophy, I should say, is just to buy the best products we can and kind of get out of the way of them. But
it shows in the food.
It does, and it's unbelievable. But going back, picking a partner in Johnny, that was an easy decision. I think one of the main things when you start a business, to have two people that are very good at the same thing often makes that hard too, because their interests and their opinions are often same. Which good thing is I knew nothing about the restaurant business. I knew nothing about food. And we have a third partner as well, a guy named Jeremy Scott, who's also a childhood friend of mine. I would take Johnny on hunting trips with me in the oil and gas business. My childhood friend became buddies of my oil field customers. And so he would often come on the hunts, and then Johnny would come. I'd bring a chef with us just to make, to add some flair to the trip. And
nobody's upset about that.
No, and everybody, the way to a man's heart is through his belly. So it makes it good. I could bring Johnny, and it helped entertain customers, his personality and everything. So in that, and with 1860, we've been so blessed because we have three guys, and really we have three guys that know a little bit about what the other one's doing to understand that and appreciate what they're doing. But in that, we also have three guys that can handle different facets of our business, and we're able in that to trust each other. We all have very good communication. I go back to emotions. We're probably all three exciting, loud, emotional people, but we're blessed in the business sense that when we talk, we can, one, trust what each other say about their responsibilities and their particular aspects of our business. But two, we also are very open, and we can question each other's decision, and we can have those hard conversations without a lot of emotion driving, and we all know that our goals are the same, so it allows that to really work well. And Johnny deserves all the credit. Jeremy handles most of the back office business aspect of it. I'm more in control of the marketing and making sure the restaurant's full. And Johnny with the concepts and the food and everything else that goes on, really the staff, he's responsible for, and he's done an absolutely wonderful job.
Yeah, I would definitely concur. Every time that I've been in there, it's just been a treat.
Right.
It really has been.
You.
So whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. So, what are some things that a person might look for in a partner or partners? Things like you mentioned, communication's key.
Right.
So, what are some other things along those lines of make sure you can do this well with this person?
I think what's important, first of all, is to evaluate yourself and make sure that you are ready to have a partner. Because if we put our faith in other people, we're going to be disappointed, and that's the truth. I mean, you have to go into a partnership knowing that there's going to be times that you disagree. There's going to be times that you have to have hard conversations, and you're going to have to be able to have somebody that you can communicate with and jump hurdles. And trust is a big part. So one, making sure that you're ready for that, and then two, finding somebody that you feel, I'll call it brotherly love, that you can love each other, you're on the same side no matter what. But at the end of the day, you can have those hard conversations, and you may disagree, you may argue about it a little bit, but you have to be able to walk away from that conversation knowing, you have to be able to agree to disagree, which is kind of cliche, but you have to be able to trust that person, trust whatever responsibility they have, that they're doing that. If the decision's made, that the end goal is the same for the success of the company, and you have to find someone that you can trust to and rely on in those times, and trust their decisions and know that they're doing the best thing for you. But honesty, integrity, always in anything we do is important. I don't think anybody would ever get into a partnership with somebody they didn't think was honest. But I think most of it goes back to making sure that you align yourself with somebody you're comfortable having hard conversations with, and you trust that no matter what that conversation is, you can walk away with it and know that it's business. It's not friendship, it's business, and that both parties are working for the end goal of the company and the betterment of the body of the company, whatever you're doing.
That's great. I've always heard it described this way, that a partnership in business, you get to know somebody about as close as you would if you were in a marriage.
Oh, and
you're going to have struggles, you're going to have arguments here and there, so you have to be able to work things out. Similar to how you would in your marriage.
No
you're
doubt.
Going to have struggles.
Which I'll say goes back to what my dad told me. You're always allowed to be demanding, but you're never allowed to be demeaning. And I think oftentimes in partnerships, when you get to a bad area or you see partners break up, it's because the communication has not taken place. People have held something in because it may hurt somebody's feelings or there is a reason they can't talk about it. But two, it gets where it's demeaning, that it's not a cordial, respectful conversation. You can talk about anything, whether it's politics, religion, or business, as long as both parties are willing to understand. We may not agree, but we're going to be respectful, and we're going to openly listen and evaluate the other people's opinion. We don't always understand where they're coming from and why their perspective is the way it is until we listen and put our ears on and understand that, and understand that you're not always going to agree, and be able to be okay with that. It's okay to disagree. So
as long as it's in the right way.
As long as it's in the right way.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, there's an underlying theme that has kind of been percolating through these episodes as we've been talking about different topics, and I want to just harp on this one a little bit because I just hear it coming up all the time. You got to be a good listener. You have got to be a good listener. I've always heard that God gave you one mouth and two ears and use them accordingly.
For good purpose, right? For good purpose. And I'll say this. It's not always bad times that hurt business partners. Oftentimes, growth and success hurts business partners. So make sure that before you get into a partnership, you have an aligned goal, and you have, I won't call it an exit strategy, but you have your long-term plan. What are we doing? If we get to this part, what's our decision? So keep your goals out in front so everybody's working for them. The worst thing that can happen in business is to be real successful real fast and have no plan. Then that's when you get differences of opinions with, resources create a lot of unrest. When everybody has the resources to go do whatever they want to do, you better have a plan and a goal that everybody's aligned on prior to getting to that spot.
You got to pull the rope the same way.
Yeah, you got to.
Now, you have experienced some growth in this partnership that we're using for the topic of this show. You guys have opened multiple restaurants at this point. Was that part of the plan from the get-go, or did that come from the success of 1860, realizing, hey, we can do this?
It was. So I'm not sure. We have recently owned Poche's Seafood Shop and Restaurant, which I think is fantastic. It goes back to Johnny's roots, and having his name on the building is really exciting. He deserves that.
Yeah, no doubt.
And he's cooking what he loves there, so it's fun. But in that, restaurants are kind of like trucking companies. You can have one or you can have 30, and you kind of get stuck in the middle. And we knew we wanted growth. Johnny's background with Maggiano's and Brinker's Corporation, he's obviously very in tune with growth and what it takes to grow a restaurant business. And I think when we got into it, our goal, we thought it was going to be 1860s everywhere. And we may still grow a few 1860s, but in opening that other concept, there was two driving factors. One, it's what Johnny knows and what he loves. It's where we have attachment in South Louisiana and my family, and so there's some fun there. That's kind of our roots and where our families are from. But two, we wanted something that we could grow fast, and we feel like that concept is a little easier to grow than 1860 is so intense. And it's a fabulous restaurant, but it's a scratch kitchen. We make everything from noodles to sauce. Everything in that restaurant is handmade. So just the labor and the hours, that's hard to put somewhere else and stay on top of it. So when we grow that, it will be because we have the right people that we can put in place.
Sure.
Poche's, the growth is a little easier, just what we're serving. Seafood obviously takes great preparation. You can really mess it up, but it's just not as labor intense to deliver that product. It's more of our procurement and the quality of product and the freshness of the product. That lays more into it. So that's a little bit easier to control away from on-site and presence. So you still have to have wonderful people and people that we trust involved, but just the business and the outline of what we're, the product is a little bit easier to expand. So we're looking at that. We may start another one before we move out of town. So who knows? We're looking every day for new opportunities and business opportunities in town. We would love to be in Bryan. We would love to have something. Everybody, I think, knows my tie to Bryan and Bobby Gutierrez and Keene Register. I've known Keene Register my whole life. Lived there. Tons of friends there. So we would love to have a presence in Bryan.
I bet it would be well received.
And hopefully, but it has to be unique. We want to keep creating unique offerings that don't compete. I think we have some wonderful chefs in this town. Wade, the Republic, the J. Cody's group, Gate 12. I love Chef Tay. There's some great people. I don't want to leave anybody out. We're very blessed. We're way different than where we were, 15 years ago. It's really grown. So we have some great offerings. So we got to. If we do anything, we'll have to work hard to make sure it's unique and different from what we have. But we look forward to the opportunity.
Well, you and I have not, just in our personal conversations, ever gotten this deep in the weeds about the restaurant business.
Right.
But just from having this conversation, it sounds like you've definitely held up your end of the bargain and the partnership of learning about the business.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
You sound like a full-blown restaurateur.
I still trust Johnny and take his guidance every day. And obviously Jeremy Scott, Jeremy's here. He and Terry Jones are partners. His day job is J&S Studies, some pharmaceutical research. So he's a pretty astute business guy.
Sure.
And so he obviously helps us a bunch to keep the important part, the finances, in order. But it's fun. I do think my part of it is looking for different opportunities and people and places to work with. So it's fun. We'll keep it going as long as we can.
I'm glad you enjoy it. Anything that you venture into, there should be some level of enjoyment in that.
Right. I agree. One of the things about evaluating yourself, make sure it's something you want to be doing.
Right.
It is hard to spend life doing, spending time doing something you don't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So
too short for that.
They call that work.
Yeah.
We should, we need to. If you're enjoying it and loving it, it's a little more play than it is work. So
I can believe it.
I'm very blessed to be able to do things every day that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm. That's a great feeling to wake up. And, I experience that in my day to day. I wake up and figure out, who can I help with their finances today?
Right.
Who needs the help? How can I serve them? And, it's not much more complicated than that.
Right.
But, it's a nice mission to wake up to.
For sure.
Keeps
it
you
is.
Energized.
It does. For sure.
So I want to wrap up with one final question here. Okay, so we've got an audience out there. They're driving in the car, listening to this, or watching on YouTube at their lunch hour at work. They saw this and they're like, man, I'm thinking about a partnership with somebody,
right?
But I need some advice on how to do it. What is one thing that you want to be stuck in somebody's brain? I want to hammer this point home. What do you want them to walk away with from listening to this episode?
Yeah, find somebody that you're comfortable having hard conversations with.
That's great advice.
And that you trust. And know that they're going to disappoint you. Know at some point in that partnership, you're going to have to give them love and grace, that you're going to be disappointed, and not to let that burn the bridge down. To handle that and be respectful and give it thought, give it prayer. When you don't agree with somebody, the best thing to do. I had an email, young man working for Laterno and Rowan, and I sent a email that was very pointed to one of the senior engineers. I was right, and so I thought I would send it. And I had my boss at the time was a guy named Tom Burke, who was a very good mentor to me. But he came to me and said, I got your email and you're right. I agree with it, but your presentation was really bad. You don't have to send that. And so he said, let me give you some advice. If you ever think you need to send that, type your email, come back and read it. Just sleep on it one time. And read it, and most of the time you'll still send the same points, but you'll send it in a lot kinder manner. And it goes back to what I said about being emotional. If we can take the emotion out of our lives and live with our faith and grace and love and treat people that way with respect, then it makes our lives a lot easier for sure.
Couldn't agree with you more. That's such a great viewpoint.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I live, my wife and I both, one day when we die, we feel, we're going to meet Jesus, and he's going to ask us how we treated everybody else. He's never going to ask us how they treated or loved us. So if we can answer that and say we faced everybody with grace and love and we're kind to them, then we'll be in pretty good standing. So
yeah, that kind of helps you navigate things in your life.
There's not anything in that book that gives us justification for doing anything wrong to anybody else. We're supposed to give grace and love in everything we do, and so I try to do that every day.
Well, I'd love to see a heck of a lot more of that around the world.
Yeah, I think it would help.
It would.
I think it would help. So.
Well, hey, thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Really enjoyed it. And
yes,
let's
sir.
get together and play golf soon.
You know, I'm always down for that, and I wish you the best in all your future endeavors. I know this is probably not the last one.
Right.
But I wish you all the best in the current one and everything that you got going on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that and wish you guys the same and look forward to seeing you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for listening to our episode today. Make sure to like, share, and download our episodes wherever you get your podcasts, and we'd really appreciate a review. Hope to see you in the 19th hole. Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized finance advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analysis of GFG Wealth Advisors. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, Private Client Services, or their clients or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by GFG Wealth Advisors or RFG Advisory or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives of Private Client Services, member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services are offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Private Client Services, GFG Wealth Advisors, and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.